I've got this book that I need to finish. 'Cause I'd written 10 chapters of a science fiction novel, but kind of let life happen to me and let that delay me finishing. So in 2012, I sat down and begun writing and completing that story. And it took me forever. It had already taken me forever anyway, but I finished the book in around 2014, 2015. I started looking for self-publishing companies, and then published that first book, and went to visit my mom in the Virgin Islands, came back to Virginia, where I was living at the time. Then my aunt got sick, and I had to take care of her for a month. And it happened to be where the parent company was actually, I won't say stationed, but it was where the main company resided, was in Aurora, Colorado. And so I actually got to meet my editor that I had only spoken with online, basically through emails and phone calls. Wrote that book, Ancient Illumination, published it officially, I think in 2016, 2017. And then, like I said, before we were speaking before we officially started, I went to my first Comic-Con in 2017 as a vendor, and we were telling people that book 2 was going to be out the next year. And it was kind of funny because my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, was like, yeah, book 2 will be out next year. And then we leave the event, and she's like, honey, are you going to be done with that book next year? Telling everybody we're coming back next year. So I was like, oh crap, I gotta get on it. So I sat down and wrote the second book, Ancient Illumination 2, Kuongoz Mwanga, which is the leading light in Swahili. And the reason I had subtitled it that is because the whole thing behind the first series was that there are beings that are made of pure light that come to Earth during the days of Cro-Magnon to kind of teach mankind. And one of those beings basically looks at us like, these dudes are too stupid. They're not going to get it. So I'm going to have fun and experiment and mutilate these people for my entertainment, basically. And the other beings of his kind find out what he's done, and they exile him here on Earth. And so he's then tasked with enlightening mankind and teaching us. And but he can't go to his pure form, and he can't leave. So it's like, until you enlighten these people, you are, for all intents and purposes, stuck on Earth. So we just become his soap opera, because he mutates us, creates a myriad of religions. We become different from each other in much more aggressive ways than simple skin color. We have the Kisan Askari, that's the stone warriors in Swahili, and they are called the stone people initially because they have calcified skin, which hardens their skin, giving them the ability to work in harsher environments, go to other planets and work in environments where the gravity is heavier, the weather is more extreme. And so they end up getting a lot of resources for the people here on Earth, and eventually get into a dispute about compensation for their work. Like, we're getting all this shit you guys can't get because you can't go to this planet because you can't survive on that planet. We need to be paid more, basically. And they end up going to war with the governments that are ruling Earth. We basically break the galaxy up into almost 9 like colonies, but mainly mankind stays on Earth, but we have various smaller mining colonies on the other planets and on the Earth. And so the ancient being of light that's left on Earth is watching this shit like a movie. He's like, oh, this is cool. So he escalates all the conflict, and he sees that regular man elevates their technological advances to try and keep up with and control these various mutant races that are now bigger, faster, stronger than they are. And it just kinds of a tit for tat goes. And the alien dude is just like, this is cool. This is hilarious. This is famine. This is war. And he's just watching it like a big television show. And then finally some of the mutant groups get together and like, we got to find this original dude to stop all this conflict because it's not doing us any good. So that's basically what I've been up to. There are 3 books in the series now. We have a graphic novel, Ancient Illumination, Volume 1, Remembrance and Revolt, which basically breaks down the first 2 chapters of the novel. Because going to these various Comic-Cons, I had plenty of people come up to me and be like, yo, that sounds like a cool-ass story. But check this out, homie. I don't read. You giving it to me in this 300-page novel? that's not going to happen. But if you illustrate it for me, I'll probably go ahead and digest your media that way. And so after hearing that over and over again, I kind of went on a search to find an artist and was lucky enough to bounce into one here in Howard County in Maryland. Jordan Purnell Jackson is the illustrator of my graphic novel. Nice. And we just finished a Kickstarter a couple days ago, as a matter of fact, and raised the money to get funded so that we can not only properly launch book 3 and volume 1 of the graphic novel, but we've now started illustrating volume 2.
Oh, that's cool.
That's what I've been up to, writing books, selling books, going to different conferences until everything got shut down. And then,
so the illustrations on your book explain to me how this works, because I'm imagining it in my mind as almost like a comic book, but a little bit more dressed up, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a graphic novel. It's basically a larger form. Oh wow, that's it's a larger form comic book. Basically, comic book is basically the only difference really is the amount of pages that I've seen. So
that's cool.
With the comic book, you're talking 22 to like 28 pages for a standard issue. This one's 56. And even if you really want to be breaking it down as that's just the argument of semantics, it is a comic book. It's just more pages usually mean it's going to be a graphic novel versus what people were telling me they didn't want to get was this, this is what the book looks like. So when the people saw that and was like, nah, dude, I'm not doing that. That's too much work. Give me it. Or maybe you just resonates with you differently. It may not be a thing of too much work. It just may be that the pictures resonate with you. Some people like to form the pictures in their mind by reading the words and trust more so in their imagination. And some people want it presented for them and then go from there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, how does that work? You're the writer. This is your novel. This is your story. Mm-hmm. You realize that it's a good idea to do something based on what your friends have told you that is more visual and not so much something that people have to read. And like you said, your buddy said, "Hey, it's only one problem. I don't read." There's a lot of people like that nowadays. So it's a good move. It's a good business move. But I got to ask, how did you know that it was going to work when you met the illustrator?
You don't. That's the crazy thing about it is I've heard a lot of horror stories about writer-artist relationships and how they kind of break down, because you basically have to you just lay out what you want, and then the artist should lay out what their price is. And there's always been this kind of argument on both sides of, well, when do each get paid? Because I understood from the beginning that I was going to get paid on the back end. But if you want someone to do the work for you, I don't care what it is, you pay them for their work. So we met up, had a beer, and talked. Because at the convention we met at, I'd already gave him the gist of my story, but we wanted to meet on personal time to see whether we would be a good fit. He seemed interested in the storyline that I was doing and liked the characters and was interested to learn more about some of the other characters that I had seen, because I did have other concepts drawn up from other authors. And then it was just about negotiating price. He said, I want this price per page, and this is what I'll do for that price. And then we went about it there. And then I just started paying him per page, price. And then as more money came in, then I would give him more money until I was paid up. And then as that happened, he would get more of the book done. So it'd be funny because if I paid him for like 20 pages, and then if I hadn't been able to give him any more money, gone, hey, what page you on? He'd be like, 20. He's like, that's what you paid up to. There's 20 pages. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to do more. I was like, okay. And then once I understood, like, look, we got to give him the rest of the money. So I worked, and my wife worked to give him the rest of the money. Got it done, got it completed in a very fast time. He was a pleasure to work with. We fed off of each other as far as we had a pretty good creative synergy, if you will, because there were certain things that thematically he would look at and be like, I think this should be this way. And as long as he had a good argument for it, I was more than happy to let him go ahead and take his direction on that, because number one, it's a different medium. It's the same story, but it's a different experience when you do the graphic novel versus the novel.
Right.
Because the novel is similar to how movies are, where say we're three characters in a film and the audience is introduced to us as we grow up and this and that, and we're going through our part of the story. 10 minutes later, they go totally different location, totally different group of people, and then you go through their part of the story, and then later they come back to us. Well, when you're doing something that's only visual, through this process I learned, or at least he told me, and it made sense when he talked about it, you can't just hop around. So what we're going to do is we're going to break up parts of the story within the 2 chapters we used and kind of sew them together so that you stay with the first 24 pages or so with one group of characters. And then we get a break, and then we go the next 20 so pages with another group of characters so that there's more of a continuity. So I like it in that way. It's a different experience. So some people that like both can get both, because if they were both the exact same story told the exact same way, somebody might be like, well, I have the book, there's no need to get the graphic novel, or vice versa. I have the graphic novel, there's no need to get the book, I'll just wait for the other volumes come out to give me the rest of the story. But the situation with the artist went really well.
Well, that's good. It's just like anything, a partnership like that can be, it can get weird at times, because you wrote the story and it's your concept, it's your baby.
Yeah.
But now he's bringing it into the mix.
Yeah.
So he's like, he's like a singer and a guitar player going, okay, how are we going to work this out? We're both kind of this. And I'm not saying that the other players aren't stars of the show, but in most cases, the vocalist and the guitar player are like the bigger stars of the show. Usually, that's usually how it goes. But those two are usually the ones that write as well. Like Cody and I, we've written a lot together, and I noticed that that's usually how it goes. So, but you have to have a good relationship with that person, because you have to be able to go, you know what? I know that you're doing this and we're doing this together. And there's going to be parts that, like you said, you allowed him to come in with ideas and kind of run with that, which is great. But that's not always something that works out for most people. So I'm glad it worked out for you.
Well, and I could see where it would be, it would have to be a give and take too, because both of you are kind of like trying to respect each other's art. Like, you put all of this work in the story, but you're kind of trusting his vision to work. And if it doesn't, you don't want to be like, I'm not saying it sucks, but it's not what I need to work with. I could see where it'd be a balancing issue. Like,
yeah, we worked those things out. The other thing is I wanted him to have partial ownership of it, because if he owns it, then he's going to care about it more.
Oh, true that.
If you're just executing my idea alone and you have no input whatsoever, then the only reason for you to do that is for the money. Like, period. This dude's paying me to do this. I'm going to ahead and do it. He wants his wild, crazy afro on this dude that's supposed to have calcified skin. Makes no sense, because, and that was one of the differences that I was talking about, having hair for some of the characters. And he's like, well, no, these group of mutants with calcified skin would inhibit them having hair. So since they're calcified all over, then they would be bald. So he made them all bald. And I was like, oh, you know what? I never even thought of that.
That's putting some deep thought into that, man, rather than just throwing a picture. I dig that.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, let's roll with it. And so, and I felt like, I felt like he felt more respected in that sense, and therefore became more enthusiastic about the project, because I want it done well, and I want it done in a timely fashion. Because as you know, when you're given a task to do, and say you have multiple, and most artists have multiple projects going on simultaneously. I can do this thing that I'm only doing for money, but there's not necessarily a time limit on that. It's kind of, we're paid up to where I am. I'll get to that when I get to it. But this other project, they've given me to write. No, me personally, if someone were to give me a writing project where I thought the story beginnings were cool and I wanted to expand that, they're letting me create my own character within this universe that's not mine, and I'm going to be able to flesh that out as I see fit. I'm going to be more interested in writing the story where I'm given kind of some agency to do with the story what I want and continue that, rather than this thing where I'm only doing it because I'm getting paid to do it, but I can get to that when I get to it.